Okay, I'm calling this meeting to order of the Sacramento City Unified School District Board of Education for a special meeting on March 25th, 2021. Superintendent, can you please take roll?
Yes, Member Pritchett.
Here.
Member Morawski.
Here.
Member Wu.
Present.
Member Garcia.
Here.
Member Villa.
Here.
Member Rhodes.
Present.
And Member Phillips.
Present.
And Student Board Member Shake.
Here.
All right. Announcement and public comment regarding items to be discussed in closed session. I believe we have 5 live comments.
Yes, President Pritchett, that is correct. And I see 4 of the commenters online, and the first is John Myers.
Perfect, thank you. Mr. Myers, I believe you're still on mute.
We're asking him to unmute.
Yes. Vincent, do you have a way to unmute him?
I can't from my end. I can just ask, and I asked.
Okay, thank you.
We could come back and go
Okay.
on to the next
Yep.
caller is Eric Schrantz.
Hi, members. I believe I'm going to be getting allocated time from John Meyer and from Jonathan Hayes. Can you approve that?
Oh, okay, so you have 2 other individuals that have given you their time?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, then that's a total of 6 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Sean.
I'm only going to need a few. So
Okay.
Superintendent Aguilar and board members, good evening. My name is Eric Schranz, and tonight I want to introduce a new group, SCUSD Students First, Parents for an Open and Equitable Education. SCUSD Students First is a new 501c3 organized parents coalition specifically focused on fundraising and legal advocacy for each student's right to a full-time in-person learning. Our singular goal is to safely return Sac City Unified children to 5 days a week, full-time in-person learning in accordance with the law and as quickly as possible. Students First specifically asks that this board not adopt any agreement which is limited by 6-foot classroom distancing, as we will show that the law specifically prevents districts from using the now arbitrary 6-foot restriction. And we also ask the board set a special meeting for next week specifically to review the district's plan to return to 5 days a week in-person learning. Students First wants to thank the various entities involved for their efforts over the last year to educate children in the district under such challenging and variable conditions. But as so many parents outlined in the March 18th board meeting, public comments and letters, our children continue to suffer adverse academic, social, developmental, and mental health effects from the extended failure to reopen our schools to the fullest extent possible. Students First is now gathering those cases, and the stories of what students have suffered without school are heart-wrenching. The district is required to fulfill its obligation to provide education under state law and under new health guidance, and as such, the proposed hybrid model must be considered an unjustifiable school schedule. The district is legally obligated to open grades K through 12 immediately for 5 days per week in-person instruction to the maximum extent possible. Students First is strongly advising this board to prepare for full-time in-person learning in a planned, organized way now. Doing so later will only add confusion and distress to the students and families who've suffered so much already. Under the previous California Department of Public Health guidance from January 14th of this year, the district needed only make a good faith attempt to provide 6 feet of distance between students and teachers. However, on March 17th of this year, San Diego District Court Judge Cynthia Freeland issued a temporary restraining order preventing the state and school districts from applying or enforcing the 6-foot recommendation, as well as the 4-foot spacing requirement found on pages 23 through 24 of the California Department of Health's COVID-19 and Reopening In-Person Instruction Framework. In response to this ruling and the revised guidance from the CDC, the California Department of Health amended that framework on March 20th of this year to remove both the 4-foot minimum requirement and the 6-foot recommendation. The amended framework now advises districts, quote, maximize space between seating and desks, distance teacher and other staff desks at least 6 feet away from the student and other staff desks. Maintaining a minimum of 3 feet between student chairs is strongly recommended, unquote. The hybrid model the district is now proposing to operate in, which was developed to adhere with the old California Department of Public Health's January 2021 framework, no longer meets the legal requirements of opening schools to the greatest extent possible. The district may not deprive students of their right to an in-person education at the fullest extent possible, simply based on the desire of some families or staff who want to stay home. The district must therefore come into compliance with state law and any remaining legally valid policies and contracts. It must immediately refile a new COVID safety plan in which it gives notice of its intent to reopen grades K through 12 in full for the remainder of the 20 to 21 school year. It's noteworthy that public school districts and private schools in our own city and county have been able to provide in-person instruction for months, and many, such as Natomas and Dry Creek USDs, have begun full-time learning or have set plans to return full-time after spring break. Now the law is clear that Sac City Unified must follow suit. Again, SCUSD Students First strongly requests that the board not adopt any aspects of its MOU that restricts the district to the arbitrary and old 6-foot restriction. And again, we ask the board to please schedule a special board meeting for the week of March 29th, that's next week, for the review of the plan to offer K through 12 5 days per week in-person learning in accordance with requirements described above. Thank you so much for your time and consideration tonight.
Thank you. And we have 3 more live comments.
Yes, our next speaker is Maria Luisa Mbile.
Hi, Maria. I believe you're on mute.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, I was meant to yield my time to Eric, but he's already read, so I'm good.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
Our last speaker is Mo Kashmiri.
Hey everybody, Mou Kashmir. Can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
All right. Well, I just want to say I just got into the fruit tree business in the sense that I just got a pomegranate tree. For those that don't know, I'm obsessed with pomegranates. So anyway, I just wanted to say thank you to the board. I think the board is doing a great job of starting to cooperate with our labor partners and working out solutions together. I just want to say I want to see more of that. I'm so excited. I know that there's some loud parents that really want school to be open 5 days a week for everybody immediately, but there's some logistical challenges to that. I'm concerned about like keeping, the huge number of students that want to keep their kids distance learning if they'd have to get new teachers. And whatever we do, I hope we can open as soon as possible. But I also think it's got to be done right, and it's got to be done safely. The last thing we could use is more negative PR about a botched implementation. I would just say let's keep working together as a team with our labor partners there, and try to figure out plans together collaboratively that are going to move us forward. And, I feel like we're making progress, and I think that's positive. And I know you don't have an easy job because you get it on all sides. But as you know, parents are all over the map around whether they want the schools open or how they want them open, etc. And there's not really an answer that's going to make everybody happy. I just encourage you to keep working with your labor partners to work together collaboratively to help solve the problems long term, because that's what's going to work. Thanks.
Thank you. Is that the only last public comment, Anne?
Yes, that was the last public comment.
Okay, we're going to move to closed session. I'll see you guys there. Okay, perfect. We're going to reconvene back into open session. Item 5.0, discussion and approval of Memorandum of Understanding between the Sacramento City Unified School District and the Sacramento Teachers Association dated March 20th, 2021 to safely reopen schools to in-person instruction and AB 1200 disclosure.
Thank you, President Pritchett. I'm going to turn this over to our staff to give an overview of such MOU to our board, as well as to our community, and then, of course, open it up for discussion and public comment.
Superintendent. If I can just take care of a technical item here. And there we go. Vincent, are you able to put the PowerPoint up for us? Thank you, sir. Good evening, President Pritchett, Board of Education, Superintendent Aguilar. I'm Raul Bozio, in-house counsel. I'll walk you through the Memorandum of Understanding that the district reached with SCTA on March 25th regarding the safe reopening of our schools. We may rely on some other staff members to also help with some of the particulars. And specifically, Rose Ramos, our CBO, will discuss the fiscal impacts and the AB 1200 disclosure that is required for prior to your approval and ratification. Next slide, please, Vincent. Okay. So as an overview of the MOU key provisions, there are extensive general safety protections, as well as an outline of the instructional model. The MOU contains health and safety protocols, as outlined in the district's Return to Health Plan that has been recently updated and posted. The MOU also contains extensive language regarding upgrades in the district that you've heard about in our prior reopening presentations concerning ventilation and filtration systems. As far as the instructional model, students will return to schools for 3 hours of instruction on that AABB 2-day-a-week small group model, and students may also select a distance learning option. The schedule for the grade levels and their return are listed there: April 8th, pre-K through 3 and K through 6 special day classes, April 15th for grades 4 through 6, and April 22, which was a move up that the district is happy to share with regard to secondary. The MOU also includes language that allows the parties to meet and confer to discuss revising the terms as local, state, and federal guidance changes and that may conflict with the MOU. Next slide, please. Staff with dependents and other circumstances related to in-person instruction. The MOU includes reference to the interactive process for employees with medical conditions, as well as those employees with caregiver responsibilities, in order to determine reasonable accommodations for those individuals. The opportunity for SCTA members with childcare issues to bring their school-age children to work consistent with health and safety protocols and without disrupting instruction. A liability waiver is included in order for that to occur. Next slide, please. The MOU contains on-site training and unit member preparation, as well as a technical support teacher stipend. The teaching staff, certificated staff will return to their work sites in person the 3 days prior to the start of their grade bands that were noted earlier. And during those 3 days, members will conduct preparations and avail themselves of the training and professional development. And for these 3 days of preparation, there's a $750 stipend attached. In addition to that, there's an extra pay provision for teachers who are providing technical assistance on the new technology that again, I know you've heard a lot about from our staff, that is going to allow for the concurrent instructional model to take place, and including that 3-in-1 camera that helps ensure that the most engaging experience for students, both at home and in person. Stipends are to be provided per every 500 students at each site under the e-stipend rate. Next slide, please. The MOU contains an appendix that includes sample schedules, and references that particular site bill schedules were to be provided to the district today, and in order to ensure that they are consistent with our responsibilities to provide transportation and nutrition services to our students. The MOU also contains a collaborative process between the parties to potentially phase in additional days for special day class students. So, based on a number of factors, including the size of their groupings in those classes, it would be discussed. It may be possible for them to move from the 2-day in-person model to a 4-day-a-week model. And we have had some continued discussions on child development services and schedules, and those have actually already taken place earlier this week. Next slide, please. The AB 1200 fiscal impact and disclosure. I think I can just go ahead and pass the baton over to our CBO, Rose Ramos, who can discuss in more detail the fiscal impacts of this agreement.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Bozio. The fiscal impact in total is about $4.9 million in salaries and benefits. This is a one-time cost, and these expenses are eligible to be charged under the CARES ESSER State Learning Loss Mitigation Funds. And so what you will see in the packet is all the disclosures as required by AB 1200. You'll see the movement from supplies and books and from services up into the salaries and salaries and benefits, as we've explained before, that until we actually have a plan for spending particular funds, we use books and supplies as a holding account, and then as that information becomes available, we start to shift that. And so you'll see that, and the net impact to the budget is zero. And just to, again, reiterate what Mr. Bozio shared, is that the 3-day stipend is $750, and the technology support stipend is $2,305. And there is, as you know, a breakdown how that is allocated. And this link does provide the details for AB 1200 as well. Thank you.
Okay. I believe we have public comment. If I'm correct, Ms. Moretti, we have 9 live comments.
Yes, that's correct. 3 of the speakers are not currently online, and our first speaker is Chris Hurd. Mr. Hurd, I believe you are on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I want to yield my time to Karen Rice.
Okay, thank you. Are there other members that are yielding their time to Ms. Rice, Ms. Moretti?
That I don't know. Ms. Rice, is that the case?
Is she on? Oh yes, now she's on.
Yes, thank you. I believe that Maria Hayes, Marco Martinez, and Kim Colts are also yielding their minutes to me.
Okay, so you're asking for 8 minutes total?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Sacramento City Unified Community. I speak tonight as a parent of 2 children in the district and as a teacher in the Sacramento area outside of the district. I also speak on behalf of SCUSD Students First, Parents for an Open and Equitable Education. SCUSD Students First is a newly formed nonprofit comprised of parents and stakeholders created to support every student's constitutional right to in-person learning. Our singular goal is to ensure that there is a 5-day-a-week, full-time, in-person instruction option for all students in all grades who want one in Sacramento Unified School District. SCUSD Students First was founded by a group of SCUSD parents who have grown frustrated and angry with current leadership denying our children's constitutional right to in-person learning. We have waited patiently as many schools within Sacramento and in surrounding communities successfully and safely returned to in-person learning months ago. while our students continue to suffer through full remote instruction. And now, the day after the California Department of Public Health released new guidance stating 3 feet between students is medically safe, this district entered into an MOU, the same MOU that is up for vote today, which expressly relies on outdated guidance that required 6-foot distance between students. What is clear is that this district simply cannot be trusted to do what is in the best interest of its students. As parents, we have been underrepresented and disregarded, yet we are the group that bear witness to our children's suffering. We have been privy to their poor school performance, lack of motivation, tearful outbursts, isolation, depression, anxiety, and their mental and physical decline. The California chapter of American Academy of Pediatrics also recognizes these problems. It has united across the state to call for an urgent and safe reopening of schools. This is an organization which represents over 5,500 California pediatricians who have outlined the irreversible damage continued school closures have on students. These are the doctors we entrust to know what is best for our children, yet we are not listening. Evidence has shown that safe in-person education for grades TK through 12th can be accomplished with proper implementation of safety measures, such as mask wearing, hand washing, and proper social distancing, which have been repeatedly recommended by our trusted scientists in national, state, and county public health sectors. Schools around the country know how to keep teachers, staff, and children safe on school campuses, yet our representatives have disregarded these examples. Hundreds of schools and school districts have been able to do this in all parts of the country. Even more evident are the school districts in our own backyard that are bringing back students 5 days a week, and some even full-time. The research shows that elementary age students are facing a staggering loss in expected literacy, and high school graduation rates are declining. Our teens especially are suffering from the more than 1 year of distance learning and social isolation, which has resulted in a 31% increase in children ages 12 through 17 presenting mental health emergencies. Stories of communities dealing with a staggering number of youth suicides related to social isolation is heartbreaking. We intend to share some of these stories in the near future as we continue our advocacy to give these kids a voice and hope for a better functioning district. Beyond the emotional toll of distance learning, many of our children are losing ground to others who have been learning in person for months and will likely increase their hours of in-person instruction. Studies consistently show what we as SCSUSD parents already know, that in-person instruction is vastly superior to remote instruction for student learning. Back on September 29th, 2020, 39 schools in Sacramento County applied for and received waivers for in-person learning. All 39 schools were private schools. How will this affect our children when it comes time for them to compete with these students for careers? And does this further widen the achievement gap between private and public schools, between those students that have and those that do not? We are adopting a hybrid model when these schools have been open successfully 5 days per week with little to no outbreaks or closures. Moreover, the proposed hybrid model makes no sense for teachers, parents, or kids. Teachers will be required to offer in-person instruction while teaching kids on Zoom. Teachers will be forced to manage children in a classroom setting while being attentive to kids online. This is challenging at best for our teachers and students, and at worst, it's laden with problems. Moreover, in the state of California, 64% of families have 2 working parents. Please explain to us how parents are supposed to coordinate drop-offs at 8 a.m. and pickups 3 hours later under the new hybrid plan. Parents and children in our community desperately want to get back into the classroom, but many aren't able to make the hybrid schedule work, so they are forced to keep their kids home where they have access to daycare. You have given them no real choices to improve the outcomes for their children, as many of these parents are the very same parents that need the most support from all of you. People in underserved communities with working parents and no solution to your challenging schedule. In closing, we recognize that there are families who, for good reasons, may not want to send their children back to school for in-person instruction. It is the duty of SUSD to respect and accommodate the interests of those students, but it simply cannot be at the expense of those students who wish to return to full-time instruction. SCUSD has been given tens of millions of dollars in stimulus money. It is time to creatively put that money to good use to meet the needs of all of its students, like Natomas Unified School District is doing with its new virtual academy that is opening in the fall. We want to be clear to the district, labor partners, and especially parents. We do not advocate for in-person only instruction. We want a distance learning option to continue. We just want those families that would benefit from a full day of instruction 5 days a week to have that option. SUSD Students First fully supports the district's continued collaboration with its labor partners, but that collaboration must be within the legal constraints this district must follow, and with the ultimate goal of serving the best interests of all students first. We ask that the community join our efforts in ensuring that the district reopen its schools for 5 days a week, full-time in-person instruction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rice.
Our next speaker is Jill Olmsted.
Ms. Olmsted, I believe you're on mute.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. Ms. Rice had wonderful things to say, with much more time to say eloquently and with facts and data. I will take my 1 minute just to echo some of that and share that I'm a mother of 3, 2 current children in the district and 1 incoming kinder. I am so appreciative that the district and the labor partners have come to an agreement to get students on campus this year. And I'm pleased that this plan represents progress, and understand we need to adopt this plan in order not to delay kids returning to campus. However, we must not sleep on the fact that the CDC and California Department of Public Health has determined a minimum of 3 feet spacing to be a safe mitigation measure for reopening of schools. We can't stay stagnant with this plan, but must progress further, listen to the science, and follow suit of the other districts who have updated their reopening plans as a result of this new guideline. We have to remember this hybrid concurrent learning plan is a model for the privileged. Not to mention the extra stress and work it's going to create for our teachers who are already working so hard. It does not serve the families who want to send their kids to school but don't have the luxury of rearranging their work schedules for 2 3-hour blocks a week of in-person concurrent instruction. Because our reopening survey did not ask families to check a reason why they are keeping their children at home, we can't assume it is solely for health and safety reasons, though of course those reasons are extremely valid. If SCUSD has the ability to safely serve more students, but chooses to reopen on outdated science without an agreement to amend the plan as soon as possible this academic year, then we are doing a grave disservice to our students who have already lost so much. And I know you guys have said several times that you've looked to other districts on what reopening plans looked like and what unions agreed to. Please look to all the other districts serving more students safely right now as examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Olmsted.
Our next speaker is Kimberly Buchholz.
Hi, I yielded my time to Ms. Rice.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I believe that was our final speaker. Marco Martinez, did you also give your time to Ms. Rice?
Yes, I did. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, then that was our final speaker.
Okay, great. I will open it up for board discussion. Who would like to start? Student Member Shake.
Thank you, President Pritchett. Apologies, there might be some background noise. So I had a sort of question about varying sections in the MOU with regards to something we're hearing over and over again in public comment, which is 3 feet. And I know the science has sort of been trickling since November and earlier, but we've seen public health authorities embrace that number following the agreement to this MOU. So in Section 1, Part A, number 3, it says that all revisions and updates to the above health and safety guidelines, et cetera, yada, yada. Essentially, it's saying the parties agree to meet in confer. So I guess my question to our staff is, have those negotiations begun? Is there no way that the district can move forward to change towards 3 feet without a negotiated agreement or an amendment?
Thank you, Board Member Shake, Student Board Member Shake. So the parties did discuss the new CDC guidance that had come out at that time last week as we were negotiating, and could not come to an agreement on changing the provisions of the MOU that would be relevant to the 3 feet guidance. That provision there is what we referenced in the PowerPoint that allows the parties to reconvene, meet and confer, and have further discussions and negotiations about any changes to the guidance and best practices, such as the 3 feet that you're referencing. So upon ratification of this agreement, the parties and the district can certainly pursue that and have that meet and confer and further discussions about potential changes.
Thanks for sharing that, Mr. Bosey. It's disheartening to hear that this was broached in negotiation. I guess I would just thank a lot of our public commenters for sharing some very essential information. The change to 3 feet has allowed districts like Folsom Cordova to make that 5-day option available for its students, something that's so needed in Sac City. So I guess I would just ask, sort of as a rejoinder, is there any plan for the district to expand the amount of days offered before summer? Superintendent, Mr. Bosio.
So is your question, could you repeat your question, student board member, so that I understand exactly what you're asking?
Yeah, is the district looking to come back to these conversations before the summer break and potentially expand the number of days, whether that's making those 2 days full, whether that's adding a third day, whatever it is? Is there a plan to expand before summer comes?
Well, I think it's really the same or a similar response to the previous question. That really is largely dependent on the 3 foot spacing issue, depending on the number of students that may have indicated or may actually return. And so I would just point you back to that same process will need to occur. If that is the board's direction, the superintendent's direction, then we would pursue that meeting.
Yeah, student board member Sheikh, I would just answer the question by saying, certainly, do I think it's viable that section of the MOU can be discussed? Absolutely. Whether something can be implemented will also depend on those discussions, and we will certainly want to hear, based on this discussion and comments and questions we've heard from public comments, where we would like to go from here.
Thank you, Superintendent. I'll just close with a quick comment, which is that this meeting that we're having right now is something many families and students and parents have looked forward to for months on end. And so while we're all very grateful for the existence of this MOU, I think many of us have concerns that it locks out the people who need a return the most, with the circumstances that are outlined for half days twice a week. And so I can't help but, while I'm grateful for our negotiating partners and everyone who was in that room, I know it was painful for us to refresh the reopening dashboard every week, so I can't imagine what it was like inside those rooms. But I guess I'll have to say it's too little and too late, and for that reason, I'll be voting no tonight.
Thank you, student member Sheikh. Any other board members? Member Phillips?
Okay, so I'm going to speak for the folks who want plain English. And the plain English is that we cannot meet and confer until we have an MOU. When we have an agreement, then we can talk about it. So all the things that we want to change, try to work out 5 days a week, try to work out more hours, try to work out, less spacing between desks. In order to meet and confer and have that happen and have those discussions, we must have an agreement first. That agreement is the MOU. So I just wanted to make sure that, for the folks in the back and everybody else, that we have a pretty clear understanding that we can't do anything until we have an agreement. If we don't ratify this, and I'm talking to board members too, if we don't ratify this, then we would basically be putting ourselves, in jeopardy of having to go back and rehash and possibly moving the dates for starting. I don't think that's something that should happen. So we have to have an agreement. That agreement is the MOU before we can go back and negotiate different things inside the MOU. I really hope that that's clear. I hope that everybody understands that. And I hope that the board is going to vote to ratify.
Yeah, thank you, Member Phillips. Member Villa?
I'm just going to say quickly, thank you, Board Member Phillips, for saying that, because that was something that I wanted to say, make it very clear what we are doing this evening. But also I want to make sure that we notate, thank you to all of the parents that are continuously emailing, calling, texting, public comments. Those are the conversations that we need to be having, and those are the conversations that we need to be listening to, because I'm a parent in the district. There's a lot of folks that are impacted by this. So this is important, just not only to certain families in certain areas, this impacts us all. So I appreciate everybody continuously speaking up. Don't stop doing it, please.
Yeah, thank you, Member Phillip. I was going to say the same. Thank you to all of the parents that have reached out to us for sure. I have a couple questions. I guess, can you give us a little bit of history from our negotiations team on here? How long did it take to get to this model?
Well, like everything, that's probably more complicated than it should be in terms of describing it. But the parties first met and exchanged proposals for reopening, specifically on February 26th, I believe. It's important to note that we had been engaged in negotiations and discussions for months leading up to that point around trying to agree upon specific in-person services. You'll recall the special education assessment MOU that was reached just around that exact very time. And so much of the discussions that were taking place in those negotiations having to do with health and safety protocols, ventilation and filtration, all of those things basically transferred right over, and one could say we're somewhat of a proxy for negotiations for reopening. And so with that in mind, various agreements were made in those discussions around the in-person assessments, and then the parties moved into specifically discussing the reopening model and plans in late February.
Thank you, Mr. Bozio. And just to be clear, I think we all want to work towards 5 days a week of having our kids back in classrooms full time. I don't think there's a single one of us that disagree with that theory. It's just going to take time. And thank you, Member Phillips, for bringing up that we definitely need to have this agreement ratified before we can have those discussions of bringing them back and having more desks in the classrooms. And I guess, another question, Mr. Bozio, if you can let us know, like if we did not ratify this agreement tonight, what would it look like? Would our kids go back to school in April, starting April 8th? April 9th? April 8th, I can't remember the date now.
Well, I couldn't say exactly what would happen in that regard. I certainly couldn't guarantee a date. The parties would have to basically go back to the bargaining table and start to discuss various items all over again to try to reach another agreement.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be your answer, which is why my first question was, how long did this take, right? It took about a month to come up with this agreement.
Right.
Give and take, right? Because I know that there were other things at play here. So, with that, I would say that we need to ratify this agreement tonight and then give the direction that our team goes back and works with our union partners on more days and then also following the CDC guidelines of more desks in the classroom. Are there more board comments? Member Garcia, then Member Morosky. And then
Sorry, I thought I had raised my hand. First, I want to thank everyone to getting us to this point. I know it's been a community of stakeholders, not only in the district, but also in the bargaining units, our teachers, and also our parents who have showed up time and time again at board meetings asking for updates and providing public comment, and who are still very engaged. I do share the goal of getting our kids back into classrooms every day as soon as we can. And it is safe to do so. But I also understand that in order to get to that conversation, to get to meet and confer, we need to approve this. This is not, this is a compromise based on the information and where we got up until whenever this MOU was signed by both parties. But it does also include provisions that allow us to continue to have conversations on issues that are inconsistent with the way information and the science is going. So we know that this virus is constantly changing, and I don't expect for a subsequent MOU or agreement to be the final one either. I mean, it's just things are in motion all the time. So I do echo the importance of ratifying this agreement. I also echo the importance of meeting and conferring on those changes relative to what's outlined in the provision, CDC guidelines, guidance, CDPH, and maybe Sac County, public health guidance. So inclusive of the distancing in classrooms, and with a goal to get our kids for in-person instruction more days than just 2. What that looks like, I don't know, but certainly want to share that sentiment. And also ensuring that we hear back. I don't know what a reasonable timeline is to hear back from the negotiations team in terms of what the outcome of that meet and confer is. I think our families need certainty one way or another, whether or not additional days will be available for the remainder of this school year. I mean, we only have 8 more weeks, but at the same time, if these changes are forthcoming, then we need to make sure that our parents have that information as soon as possible, so then they can make a decision based on their individual need and preference. So with that, I would like to move to ratify this agreement with the direction for staff to go back to meet and confer on the issues that are still in conflict based on the latest guidance. So I don't know if you need additional clarity to that, and then also make sure that there's a time date. I don't know what's a reasonable time. 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I just want to make sure that we have finality one way or another.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Certainly, we can either look to a board meeting as a date that we can come back with an update to the board. I know that the board was very committed, and our community was expecting us to have as a standing item until we reached the reopening date, a standing item, if you will, on such. We'd be happy to do the same with this, depending on President Pritchett's advice and guidance, and the boards as well. We have another board meeting on April 8th, as you know, and following that, it's on April 22nd. So we could certainly make a commitment to provide updates at those 2 board meetings.
And perhaps I should have started with my questions. But
you have a motion on the table right now. Do you want to retract your motion?
No, I do not want to retract my motion. Yes.
You're retracting your motion? Okay.
I am not retracting my motion.
Oh, okay.
So the motion's on the table. So I welcome a second.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I know that there were other hands up to speak, but we need to work through this. If there's questions about the motion first before you speak on the agenda topic. So right now, because there's a motion and second, we need to take a vote. Is that the way that you guys want to go on this? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, am I correct, Dulcinea Raul?
President Pritchett, I would like to hear the rest of my colleagues' statement.
Okay, but I know, but there's a motion and a second on the table. So when there's a motion and a second on the table, we have to handle that motion and the second, and then we have to vote. But is that correct, Raul? Am I doing this correct? I just want to make sure. And I still take comments, but
Dulcinea, you want to handle that one?
Sure, President Pritchett. You, to the extent you want to allow discussion, you are correct that typically the motion and the motion would be addressed. To the extent you want to essentially pause the motion to allow for the discussion to happen, and then the motion can be renewed if Member Garcia wishes to do that after the motion is, after the discussion occurs, so that the board members can continue their discussion if they'd like to do that.
So then Member Garcia would need to retract her motion and then re-motion after we hear the comments, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I had that correct. I've been studying it and I thought I had it correct.
So I will retract my motion for purposes of continued board discussion.
Okay, and then I think Member Phillips had a second. Do you retract your second?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, so I'm sorry, I didn't see whose hand up was first. I thought it was Member Morowski, and then Member Rhodes, did you have your hand up? Okay. All right.
Board Member Sheik, yeah.
Member Morowski first?
Rofsky first, and then I.
Member Sheik? Okay.
Thank you. I also just I appreciate the continued discussion. I wanted to be sure that Member Garcia was finished with her questions.
I did have a couple. Oh, yeah, I did have a couple of questions.
I'm happy to wait.
On the thank you, Board Member Morowski. On the child care issues, there was in the MOU there was language that a meeting was to take place on March 22nd. So I just want to know if there's an update on that you could share. And then a related question to, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yes, that meeting regarding child development did occur on Monday. And various details around the schedule and some of the particulars on how those programs would work were discussed. And we're kind of going through the process with SETA just to make sure that we're confirming that we're in agreement on some of those particulars that we're hoping to kind of wrap up some of the details there.
So we'll see a separate MOU for that particular issue?
Well, we'll have to evaluate whether that's needed. There's not any monetary components that I'm aware of that I can recall related to that piece. So they're really kind of details around the scheduling and basically kind of conforming those schedules in child development to the K through 12 for the most part, with some specific exceptions regarding some of the particular programs that are offered in child development.
Got it. It's a scheduling conversation.
Yes,
okay.
Primarily, yeah.
Okay, so that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Member Garcia. Member Morowski?
Thank you. Well, first, I want to thank everyone, on both sides of the table who worked hard in good faith on this agreement. Every year, my sons and I go to buy a back-to-school outfit. It's kind of a tradition we have. It's a big deal. And I'm happy to say that we got to do that earlier this week. So we're really excited. I know our teachers are excited, our principals, classified staff, parents are beyond excited to get back. So I know there's a lot of moving pieces, and just wanted to also thank the district and all of the staff who's done a phenomenal job just getting ready and reinventing everything again for this year through COVID. So I am prepared to support this MOU today. A modest amount of in-person time is better than none. And that without this MOU, that is realistically where we would be. So we would have uncertainty, and we would not have a date to get back. I remember, earlier this year, we had a lot of uncertainty and chaos around the rollout of distance learning. And ultimately, even though the district tried to push for, consistency and high quality that the district thought, that students deserved, we didn't get an MOU. And we had that chaos, and we can't afford that. We have an MOU to get back. It's not everything everyone wants. It's a start. And I have said in prior meetings that we need to stay focused on everything we can do to increase the quantity and the quality of in-person instruction in accordance with public health guidance. And as I said at the last meeting, the 6 foot, kind of gold standard on distancing is what's basically keeping us in hybrid. It's really important to me that this MOU recognizes the need to come back to the table as that guidance changes. And echoing Member Garcia in that guidance will constantly be changing. So we need to make sure that we can be flexible. And, I think a lot of us recognize that this physical distancing standards have been loosened. This will allow, in many cases, all or most or all of our students who want to go back more days a week. It's a wonderful thing. I know a lot of our teachers, want to see their kids in class, want to see their work, give them feedback. Parents certainly want that. And I just wanted to be really, really clear about the MOU states specifically, if any provisions contained in the MOU conflicts with revised or updated guidelines, best practices, recommendations, or considerations from Sacramento County Public Health or CDPH, California Department of Public Health, the parties agree to meet and confer. So it's my expectation that the recent changes in guidance and best practices from CDC and CDPH, and I'm not sure about Sac County Public Health yet at this date, but the state and federal guidance certainly conflicts with the 6 foot of distancing that is in the MOU. So consistent with the MOU, I expect that all parties will return to the table to address the changes in guidance that will allow more kids in the classroom. And I just would ask that everyone do so with the same urgency that all of our parents feel to get our kids back in the class more days a week. So I think that's it. One last piece about the technology. I'm really excited about it. I know a lot of our school site staff are really excited about the technology. We've got Chromebooks for everyone. We've got so many things going on, and in a rush to put all of this stuff in place, I just thought it was opportune to request that at some point over the next coming months that we come back to the board with a plan or just an explanation of how we're going to maintain and keep current with the technology as we have to replace and all of that sort of thing. So that's a bit off topic, but I really wanted to make sure I put that out there as something that we should probably come back to on that piece. Thank you very much.
Member Morawski, if I can just interject very quickly, only because I actually had a meeting on that topic today with staff, and I do want to make very clear to our board and to our community that the infusion of one-time funds has in fact allowed us to address many of the technology gaps that have existed in Sac City for a long time. So by no means would I ever suggest that what you're seeing today in terms of new technology for our students and our staff and everyone else is the result of a 5-year strategic plan around instructional technology or anything like that. We probably would have never predicted that we would be nearly 1-to-1, in some cases 2-to-1, in the course of about a year. Our challenge, in fact, is that as we were to think about refresh rates, if we were to say, for example, right now that we would love to give a 4th grade student a computer that we would refresh when they start 9th grade, for example, that would be an example of something that we would want to do. We don't have the ongoing funds to ensure that could be actualized. We're aware of it. And we're thinking through how we make a commitment today that shows the value of those investments and still be prepared for the time that those computers need to be refreshed. At the moment, we don't have that kind of structure, as you know, but we are thinking about how do we make sure that we take those things into consideration and not get to a place where those computers are no longer useful in a few years from now. So this is not part of a long-term strategy around that. We would have to come back and think through that very carefully.
Thank you.
I think you were calling. You're muted. Thank you. Okay. So really quickly, I did want to thank Mr. Bozio and the superintendent for the presentation today and the great answers of everything. And I think for those of us like me who are not subject to closed session, there's a lot of questions that float around with regards to how negotiations happen and sort of what that process leads to. And I would hope that when we come back from spring break, we can sort of bring more of that information to the public beyond just having a reopening dashboard, which I know the superintendent recommends looking at, and I would recommend everyone look at it, but be it sort of having maybe incorporating some of that into our board meetings or communication. And I think that would be really important. And then I just wanted to clarify my stance on this vote, which was that there are a lot of frustrations that student board members have with voting preferentially, which is that we know that our vote won't come to a tally. But I think today that comes at a benefit for me, which is I knew from the moment the special board meeting was posted that the MOU would be ratified. And so in being here for this vote, I'm voting no, not because I don't want to return to school in person and not because I'm not going to cooperate with this, because I will be returning to school the week of April 22nd, God willing. And so I'm excited for this MOU very tepidly, but I do want to emphasize with my symbolic stance, which I'm allowed to because I don't count towards the tally. But I do want to basically say at this point that there's a lot that needs to be changed here. And there's a lot that's behind the times, and a huge part of our screwing up over the COVID response has been working on science that applied yesterday but not today. And I think that I'm excited to see what our staff reach in the coming discussions that are outlined in this MOU. And so thank you.
Thank you, Student Member Shake. Very well said. Are there any other board discussions before we take a motion? Okay, so I want to be clear that along with this motion, it is my hope that we also give a recommendation on to the superintendent and staff of what the next steps are. And so this can be part of the motion, but my understanding from board members from the majority is that the recommendation would be to approve the recommendation and then meet and confer with the intention to plan on more days, 5 days a week in the classroom, and 3-foot classroom desks. Is that correct from my board colleagues? For the direction of the staff?
Yes.
Okay. Also add a timeline by the next board meeting. We can get an update.
To have an update, not a decision, but an update by the next board meeting.
It could include a decision.
We would love to have a decision. There's no guarantee on that.
It could include a decision. So I just think that it's important that whatever the decision is, that our parents know.
Okay. Superintendent, is that clear?
Yes, I just wanted to also just ask in terms of additional clarity, that we will include at the next board meeting as a standing item, an update on this topic that may lead to more direction, a decision, et cetera, but that will be part of our standing item until such time we either again make a decision or take some kind of action. And we will do that with your direction, board members.
Okay, and just for the community's information, the process is that we ratify this MOU tonight, and then SCTA also is ratifying with their board, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure that we put that out there, that it's not just us. Okay, good. All right, so Member Garcia, do you want to go back to your motion?
Yes, I will unpause the motion. I'll put it back on the table to move the MOU, ratify the MOU with direction to staff to meet and confer on the inconsistencies or the changes, to address the changes in all of the, CDC, CDPH, and maybe Sac County PH if there are any changes, especially as they relate to the distancing in classrooms, the 3 feet versus 6 feet, which could potentially lead to additional days in the classroom for in-person instruction, and that we have that by the next board meeting on April 8th.
Perfect.
Seconded.
Okay, I have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any discussion about the motion and second? Okay, with that, student preferential vote?
No.
Okay, superintendent roll call?
Member Pritchett,
Yes.
Member Morowski.
Aye.
Member Wu,
Aye.
Member Garcia,
Yes.
Member Villa,
Aye.
Member Rhodes,
Aye.
and Member Phillips.
Aye.
Perfect. Majority has it. All right. Good luck to staff on this. I know that it's been a lot of work, so thank you for all that you have done on this. And I know there's more work to come, so thank you again. With that, item 6.0 adjournment. Student member Shake, would you like to take us out?
Sure. And I know that in the past this board has adjourned in the memory of folks. So I was wondering if Member Wu would like to adjourn in the memory of Manny.
Student member Shake will be doing that at the next board meeting.
Oh, fantastic. All right then. Hope everyone has a great spring break. I motion to adjourn.
Thanks.
Seconded.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.